Okay guys, I want to change gears here for just a little bit. I went ahead and fastened the hinge in for the control panel top because it kept trying to slide off while I was working on other stuff and I didn't have it bolted to the hinge yet. So we got the hinge all installed and everything, and it's working good. I don't know if I showed you a close-up of this offset hinge here, but there's the offset hinge. Got it installed, looking and working pretty good. It is aluminum, so I notice it does flex a bit, especially when you're tightening bolts down and all. It's not that hard to bend aluminum, but it's a pretty strong, very large hinge, and it's my first experience installing one, and worked out pretty good. Right now what we want to do, I came back after I put the hinge on. I trimmed my T-mold here on each side just so it would stop at the top of the control panel box. It was going down behind there a little bit, and now you can kind of seat the control panel box up good and tight in the cutout on each side. But there is one thing though, that the control panel top, it still bumps the T-molding, and it looks good that way. As you can see, I think it looks good that way because you don't see an edge to the T-molding. It kind of goes down in there, and that's where a lot of cabs are. But I don't have a cutout for my control panel top. I just have this cut at an angle to go against the angle of the cabinet, so that pushes the entire box and control panel top assembly out about 1/8 of an inch. And you can't really notice it. Let me get my flashlight. I can get it lit just right so you can see. See, there's a little bit of a gap there between the control panel box and the side of the cabinet, but you have to have that because of the T-molding up there holding that control panel top back just a hair. But the only other ways I can think of doing it is cutting a notch in this or something to set the T-molding, or just cut the T-molding off right there. But if I cut the T-molding off right there, not only will you see the edge of the T-molding, but every time you close the control panel top, it'll hang on it a little bit if it's a tight, snug fit. So, I mean, I don't know exactly how to deal with that. It's just something that I think it looks good like it is. Like I say, it only goes down about 3/4 of an inch, the thickness of the control panel top. And it just barely, you know, it's probably not even 1/8 of an inch that the control panel box is out. But it's very functional this way. It looks good from the front. It's just if you get at the side and you start staring, you might see a little tiny gap there. It'll probably be less noticeable if I paint that black, and I'll probably will come back and just paint the back of the box black. I didn't see any reason to put any laminate on there, and I'll paint the back of the control panel top either black, or I might just paint it a dark blue to match the T-molding, because I wasn't going to try to cut a piece of T-molding to fit in that piece because it was going to have to be on an angle, so it couldn't run off the same piece. Obviously there's just no way it wouldn't make that turn. I could cut a piece and put an angle on it and snap it in there, but you know, you're going to see a seam right here, so I'm like, I just like the good sharp edge there. But right now, I think we pretty much have it in its permanent spot. I put a little pencil mark right there on the control panel box at the edge of the cabinet, inside and outside edge, so I can always line this back up permanently. And I'm just going to make sure it's snugged as close as it can be without impeding the opening and closing of the control panel top. And then I'm going to install these bolts I've got here. These bolts came with a TV bracket installation kit that I got for my 55-inch LCD in the living room, and it came with tons of extra bolts, and this was just 4 good hefty bolts, and I had some washers already. And I went and bought these nice big T-nuts that fit them out of the metric part of the bolt supply area over at the Ace Hardware, and these were about 90 cents a piece to fit these bolts. But I was going to put regular nuts under the bottom. I'm like, yeah, but if I want to take it off, I'll have to, you know, find the nut underneath if it falls and stuff like that. And I'm like, if I can hammer these in underneath the board that supports this control panel and leave them there permanently, then anytime I take the control panel off and put it back on, I just run the bolts back down through it, and the T-nuts stay there constantly. And that sounded like a better idea, so that's what I want to do. And I want to space them out. I'm going to put a couple on this side and then go over about maybe 20 inches or so, and I'll put a couple here on the left hand side. Bolt straight down into the piece of wood there. And if you remember that piece of wood, it's still got red laminate on it there. That's a piece that we salvaged from the old cabinet, and you can see the monitor shelf back there still has red laminate under it too. So kind of a nice finish underneath. You won't ever see it, but I just wanted to salvage that wood, so I turned the bare wood part up and painted it gray to match the rest of the inside of the cabinet. You can see all that in some of the previous videos. But when we drill down through this support board here for the control panel, it may bust out that laminate just a hair, but we're going to try to minimize that by whenever the drill bit comes through a little bit, we're going to take a spade bit on the bottom and drill up through it and create just a very small recess for the T-nuts. Kind of tap them in place a little, then throw the bolts in on top and just tighten them down, and it should seat the T-nuts all the way home. And once they're in there, they're not going to come out again. So we're going to get on doing that now. We'll start drilling the holes here in a second. We just drilled our first hole, guys, and we used a spade bit that was just a little larger than the shaft of the bolt we're inserting, because it is the exact size that we need to put the T-nut in from the bottom. So the T-nut will go in from the bottom and actually center the bolt. The bolt will have just a little play in the hole that goes through the control panel top here, but once you torque down on it, you will have just a slight wiggle room with the control panel box, and you can get it right where you want it. And then when you torque down on it, it'll have a washer on top, and the washer will get a bite in the wood and keep it perfectly in place. So we've drilled the first hole, and that was the most important one there. Start lining up this side. This side was seemingly giving me a little more trouble staying in line. I guess the top of the control panel box was just bumping that T-molding there a little more, and it was kind of pushing it out every time I get it in the correct position. So we're just going to vacuum up our mess here. I'll show you from the bottom. If I can get focused. There you can see our first hole from the bottom there. And the bolt will come down in there. We're going to put a T-nut up into that hole. So that should be the exact size the T-nut will fit up into. And then we can tap it a little bit in place. I don't really want to tap it much on it because I don't want to pop this board loose. But as I tighten the bolt from the top, it'll compress the T-nut into this red laminate and seat it home. It'll probably stay there forever. So we've got our other three marked. Got a mark right there. And we got two marks right here and right here. And we spaced it off enough from the edge so it's not intersecting where there's any kind of pieces of wood or cleats that are holding on that board underneath, and it's not going outside the edge of the cabinet or too close to the edge of the control panel box. We just got it spaced kind of evenly. We got it spaced kind of wide in here. That way when you're moving it around and all, it's like you're bolted into the edges and not just kind of the center. Okay guys, what I'm doing is I took the control panel off real quick, and the bolt is the exact length as the thickness of both this panel and the bottom of the control panel box. And what I want to do is I'm just dropping it down there temporarily, and I'm trying to get this T-nut seated. I couldn't do it with the control panel box up there because the T-nut, it just wouldn't get enough threads on here. Let's see if I can get this where you can see it. The T-nut would just not get enough bite on the threads coming down from the bolt because the bolt stands down about the exact thickness of 2 pieces of 3/4 inch material. So it's probably about 1.5 inches or a little more in length. So what I'm doing now is this is just something I'm doing to help hold the control panel box when I'm working on it on the other 3 bolts. I've dropped the bolt down through there, and I pulled the T-nut up, and I'm going to go ahead and torque it all the way down, and it should pull the T-nut up into its final resting place. And that bit is the exact diameter as the diameter of the center part of that T-nut, so it's going to fit in there real snug. It's going to look really good actually. It's going to look like it was made that way. So we're just going to snug it on down, and this is one of the most important points. This side just kept kind of rocking around on me. Once I get it with the T-nut seated into this board, I'm going to put the control panel back up and tighten it up into the T-nut, and that'll hold the control panel while I do the other three. Second one drilled out. Let's just see how the bolt sits down in there. See, it's got a little bit of a loose fit, not too loose, just enough to give you a slight bit of adjustment, but even though it adjusts on the box, it's not going to adjust that much down below because it goes into the T-nut, and we'll probably have to do the same thing. Probably have to do the same thing to fully seat this one, I'm not sure. I don't know, I got that one pressed up in there a little bit. It raised the bolt, so I might be able to tighten it up from up here without taking the control panel off, which is a plus. So let me see if I can get a bite on that T-nut and we'll tighten it on down. And you would think it might be hard to pull that T-nut into the laminate, but it actually is not that bad. Yeah, see, it's grabbed the threads now. So it's pulling the T-nut up into the hole, and then make sure it's not going crooked. Nope, looks perfect. Looks perfectly straight. Make sure my control panel is where I want it. I want to tighten it on down. I think that's about as tight as I want to get it. T-nut's all the way flush. Looks good on the bottom. And I mean, just with those two bolts, this is sturdy as I'll get out. You could move the cab around with it. But we're going to add two more just to make sure it's good and sturdy. I'm going to do those off camera. I'll be back and show you the results. Okay guys, we got the control panel box completely bolted down. Good thing is now that we can not have to worry about that box falling over whenever the weight of this control panel is up. We can actually raise the control panel, and the hinge is stiff enough it actually holds it. I mean, it'll hold it pretty much all the way out to there. I'm sure after it gets some wear in it and it's not as new, it may not do that, but right now it's holding it. See, once you move it around a little bit, it kind of acts like it doesn't want to hold it. Just depends on the position. But it holds it at 90 degrees really easy most of the time. I have a little lift that I was thinking about installing. I bought it way back when I was getting parts for the MAME cab, but I don't know if it's going to fit in here. If it does, I'll probably put it on one side or the other. It's a little small pneumatic lift, and I thought it might be neat to have that to help lift up the control panel top and hold it. But I'm not sure. It all depends on what type of latching mechanism I get for this thing, so that this thing doesn't come unlatched when you're fast and furious playing some fighters or something like that. But there's our bolts. Got two in each side. bolted down nice and tight. See if I can get some light under here where you can see under the bottom. See, there's our T-nuts, and you can see I wasn't real picky about the paint under here. I got a little paint under that on that board when I was painting some. But there's our 2 T-nuts, and we got the bolts extended down through there. Same thing on the other side. Worked out really good, and it's really kind of cool, I think. I like it that way. That way you can unbolt the control panel top, not worry about the nuts falling off the bottom. When you bolt it back on, you've already got those threaded T-nuts waiting to receive the threads of the bolts from up above, so works out pretty good. Well guys, another late morning for me. It's like 2:17 in the morning and I've got to go to work, so I'm gonna leave you guys with this. I'll work on it some more tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'll get back with the shroud or the monitor bezel and the plexiglass that we got cut. We're real close to being able to use that. We just needed to get this mounted permanently so we'd know our exact distance and stuff, where to mount things, because we're going to have a little piece between the control panel box and the monitor bezel and the plexiglass, or at least something to hold the bottom of them here. There's got to be a transition between the control panel and the glass and the bezel. We'll figure that out in the next day or two. Talk to you guys later.